Hey ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about for Module A, Caliban and the prisoners, about the other and imprisonment. So one of the things to keep in mind is how the ideas between the two texts, the Tempest and Hag-Seed, link, but also the other thing is how the themes all link to each other. We see Caliban and the prisoners as the other, but we can also link that to the idea of imprisonment as well. All right, so one of the first things that you need to do is make sure you do have a nod to some context, because it's the context that are different in the two pieces of writing. So you can mention either the British colonization of the Americas in 1607, or just in the early 17th century, colonies established in North America. Very simple. Or even just suggesting it's the age of discovery. All right, so how Caliban sees the age of discovery. Okay, now Caliban, as we've talked about in class, represents the other. He represents the indigenous population. So he sees himself as this island's mine by Sycorax, my mother, which thou takest from me. So you've got the high modality language there. We have the hyperbole of I am all the subjects that you have, all right, which highlights the idea of Prospero being in control of everybody on the island, but Caliban knowing it's just this one person that he's imprisoning. Now, in terms of Caliban using language, the Red Plague rid you for learning me your language. Okay, this idea that Prospero and Miranda, while teaching Caliban language, they've corrupted these values. It's very ironic. Okay, so what we've got there is that Shakespeare is offering a discovery about the discussion of the morality of colonialism. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? He basically just opens up the discussion. He doesn't really make a point as to which way he is seeing that. So on how Caliban was seen by Prospero, Miranda, the others coming to the island, what ho, slave Caliban? All right. Every time Prospero talks to Caliban, he talks in commands, short sentences. Does not converse with him, is what's shown. Then we have the idea that when Stefano and Trinculo see him, when they will not give a do it to relieve a lame beggar, they will lay out 10 to see a dead Indian. Okay, so this idea is that Caliban's seen as an exotic creature, an object of curiosity. Where people won't give money to, someone who really needs it on the street, they'll, pay to see something strange and exotic. Obviously, if you've just stuck, you've got no ideas, there's the repetition of monstrous and slave almost every single time that someone does mention or talk about Caliban. And certainly at the end of the play, Caliban is left there on his own. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we get to decide. Now, in terms of Atwood, she presents the prisoners as the other. They are outside of society. They lack rights, treated as beneath everybody else who's represented in the play, except for Felix and Anne-Marie, who do get to know them. And there's that idea that a textual conversation of Felix and Anne-Marie when they get to know the prisoners, similar to Prospero and Miranda's early time with Caliban. And you do need to remember that Atwood is having a conversation with the Tempest. So the ideas in the Tempest, she is talking about how she's making a similar or a different point of view through her characters. So in terms of Atwood, the contextual link is that there is a moral and social conscience, and the idea is that these literacy programs in prisons can be transformational. They can change the way people see the world. They can rehabilitate, and she sees a great thing in that. So have a look in Smeducation. There's a big link there. Alrighty. So the other teachers and the shrinks, how they talk about Felix because he's being nice to the prisoners, or they warn him these are damaged men. Some of them are better off in a mental institution. All right. Estelle, when she's talking to Felix, obviously we've spoken about this one before. She clearly had a vision of Felix laying on the floor with a homemade shiv sticking out of his neck. You don't need to use the whole quote, just Felix laying on the floor with a homemade shiv sticking out of his neck. Really good imagery, which highlights her fears for Felix. In terms of Anne-Marie, you know, a couple of disparaging comments here about how she initially sees her role, and certainly the guards taking her knitting needles. Those needles could be used against you. Those are dangerous men in there. Okay, all these warnings to Anne-Marie. Felix, sort of as the play is almost done, Legs has come through for the play, "Oh, brave new world that has such people in it." So this is some intertextuality as well, and really links that idea of Felix getting to know the prisoners and enjoying them. And that's where we're going for that one.